Good evening, everybody. It is such a pleasure to have you all here tonight. Um, and it's a very special webinar for me because I feel so personally involved in everything that Christie's campaign is about. And when we started talking and getting into it, we both agreed we needed to get this information out there and hopefully have all of you approach your voiceover careers and the way in which you go about getting work uh, in a much more robust, daring kind of way, so that other people will see that this is very doable. It is a huge change of mindset that we're going to talk about tonight, but such an essential one. And there are many amazing good reasons to change that mindset anyway. So I had mentioned that I am a strong believer in the Building Doors campaign. Christy Harst, who is here tonight, is the dedicated creator and mastermind behind Building Doors, which is a global campaign putting a spotlight on female voice actors where you're used to hearing only men, and also urging brands to stop playing it safe and start sounding like the future, which is female. She's a great voice actor in her own right. She's voiced for the World Series, Monday Night Football, and the NBA Finals as one of the national voices of YouTube TV. And she's also served as the national voice of John Deere, among other things. So she does have experience about breaking barriers there. We have two ambassadors for the Building Doors campaign who are going to be here tonight, and we're going to talk about some of their experiences and what the things that one can do in those situations and what they did in those situations. We have Marion Mills here, if you want to just wave your hand. She's an award-winning voiceover artist. She's based in Virginia, a former Army veteran with a well, she's not a former Army, she's a present Army veteran with a background in social work. She recently voiced the Together short film, We No Longer Have to Choose. She's also worked with many major brands and networks and organizations like Amazon Fire TV, Nike, DoorDash, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and many others. And we also have Barry Savaris with us tonight. She's an international voice and on-camera talent. She began her career on the improv comedy stages of New York City, but it was in South Korea that she actually established and grew her voiceover business. She's recently moved back to the States, and she has worked with the LA Chargers, Microsoft, Toyota, and was the voice of the 2018 Winter Olympics. So she also has that kind of experience. So, with no further ado, I thought that I would kick this off by talking to you about what this mindset is. For far too long, women have been excluded from areas of voiceover that they are more than competent in voicing. They are just as much experts in those different areas, and there is a need to have those women voicing those particular areas, tech and trucks, sports, and, I mean, you can go on and on. Farm equipment like John Deere, all sorts of stuff, right? And one of the things, I mean, you have so many things on your side that maybe you don't think about. For instance, women are the CFO, chief financial advisor in their family in over 60% of U.S. households. Okay? That means that women control most of the money in the United States in terms of what they do with the money that comes in. No, billionaires, male, white, rich billionaires are in control of that money. But, but what I'm telling you is that in terms of a market to sell to, women are controlling much of where that money spent goes. That's a tremendous point that you can bring up with other people. I want to bring examples of my life in different situations where hopefully you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. Um, so I had for 25 years, I had a wonderful uh, agent, woman agent. I hadn't been paid for a voiceover job in over 30 days. It was a plus 30. And I called her and I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And she said, "Oh, sometimes they end up paying, but sometimes they just don't pay on time. And we just need to give them a few more days." And I'm going like, "Yeah, but they signed a contract that said plus 30. They're disrespecting you. They're disrespecting me at this point. Why'd they sign a plus 30 if they didn't intend on that? Why didn't you talk to them about a plus 60? And then I wouldn't be talking to you." So she said, "Look, just give them a couple more days." 2 weeks later, I happen to get the numbers. Whenever I do a job, I get the numbers of the producer, I get the number of the director. I'm just like, because I want to stay in touch. Called the producer. I said, "Look, I don't know what's going on here. I got a mortgage to pay, and we were supposed to get paid weeks ago now. Can you just make sure that tomorrow I get paid? We get paid?" And they said, "Yeah, I don't know what's going on here." And I said, "Well, I'll wait. Why don't you see what's going on?" And they came back, said, "Somebody was on vacation. I don't know, it got pushed around, but they're back and you're going to get paid tomorrow," which I did. And then my agent calls up and said, see, they pay." I said, "You know why they pay?" I said, "They pay because I had to go and talk to the dang producer to get paid." She said, "You what?" I said, he was apologetic, right? But here you are walking around with pins and needles because you're not getting paid, because I'm not getting paid. That is not a great attitude. This is not a wonderful attitude to lead in with. And this is the attitude that I'm talking about. Um, Women need to stand up for their worth 100% of the time. They can do that in many different ways. They can do it with humor. They can do it with a sense of pride. They can do it with a sense of coming to the project with equity, that you are an equal part in this project. And in the way that you gave a service, you now want to get paid for that service. You want to get paid the good amount for that service. So that's one instance. Um, I talked to Carrie the other day about this particular instance. Hi, Carrie. Um, a woman, on camera and voice actor, great friend of mine, came to me saying that a company uh, that she worked for as a moderator, um, on camera for a medical company. Um, she wanted to, she couldn't do a job. And so she knew that I did that kind of work. And so she asked me to do it. I said, "Great." She gave me the number, said, "See if you can work it all out and make sure that they're cool." I called them. I said, they said, "Great, this is fantastic. Uh, this is the job." And I said, "Great, okay. Well, there's travel time, there's this and this, so I'll charge $1,000 for the session, right? For on the hour of prep, hour on camera." They said, "Great." Had a wonderful time. Um, Talked to the woman after she came back, said, "How did it go?" I said, "It was fantastic. They're great people to work for, aren't they? And you were okay with the 500?" I said, "500? What do you mean 500? I charged 1,000." She was in shock. She said, "They're paying me 500." And I said, "Well, how did that happen?" She said, "Well, when I started work for them, we agreed on 500. I said, "Well, you need to go back and say that it's 1,000 now." So she said, "Really? You think that's okay?" I mean, why is she asking me if it's okay? But I said, "Look, I just did the job for 1,000. You need to do the job for 1,000 from now on." So she went. She asked them, "I want to do it. I heard that David, you paid David 1,000, and going forward, I would like to be paid that as well. And they said, sure, okay. And they said, she was like in shock again. She said, well, why haven't you paid me $1,000? And they said, you never asked. Why had she never asked? Why? She had done a number of jobs for them. You know, there's cost of living increases, there's annual increases for other reasons. There's if you're doing a great job and they depend on you. There are so many, but unbelievable. This is so, you can see I can get my dauber down. I'll head up here. A woman, VO, somebody who was a member at GVAA came to me saying a company wanted to pay her $250 for a job that should have paid $750 according to the GVAA rate guide. And she said, what should I do? I said, well, go back and make sure that they are a professionally run company, that they're not some kind of fly-by-night thing or some kind of scam company that just needs a VO here or whatever. So she went back and she said, listen, I want to be sure you're a professional company. You're not like a fly-by-night amateur kind of thing that just, on stilts. They said, no, of course we're a professional company. She said, well, I don't understand because you're paying me an amateur rate. So I thought maybe you were an amateur company. Because that's, anyway, now I told her, this is exactly what you need to do. This is where you need to come from. And so she said, I am a professional. And if you are a professional company, then we need to meet on a professional level. And this is my rate. The professional rate is $750. Here's the GVAA rate guide. See where it says that? And the guy says, well, we just don't have that in our budget. And she said, well, maybe you need to go talk to somebody just real quick to see what your budget is. He came back and said, okay, well, we found a couple, we can do 500, but that is like the most that we can possibly pay. So they all of a sudden doubled the amount, except she said, well, I'm sorry, the pay is $750. I still can't do it. So they said, okay, great. Well, we'll find somebody who can. And so they went to, I think it was Upwork. I can't remember, but they found somebody to do it for $250. They finished, they put it in front of the president or the CEO's face and ears. And he went, what is this? This isn't the person that I listened to, that I wanted. Who is this? And they said, well, the person you wanted, she was charging too much. And he said, what was she charging? Well, she was looking at a rate guide saying $750. And so the guy said, yeah, but this is crap. I can't deal with this. And so the guy says, okay, well, should we offer her $750? Look, I don't want the hassle. If I heard her, she's right for the part, just get her. So he comes back, asks and says, look, it's we can do this. We can pay you $750 for the job. They'd already paid the other person $250. Now they're paying $1,000. And if she wasn't the most amazing person in that moment, she said, that is fantastic, except that with all of the scheduling and the back and forth and everything, my rate's now $800. And at that point, they just said, fine, just send us a contract. She got $800. And they ended up paying $1,000 where they could have just paid $750 for the whole thing. And so this is an amazing example of what you can do if you just simply ask and if you understand your own worth. I'll just a couple of more and then I'm done, okay? And so as a casting director, right, I usually get the same spec for explainer and promotional corporate, all that kind of stuff. They always want a male, 30s to 40s, right? So I go, great. And I always throw in about 10 amazing women as well. This is what I do. half the time they end up choosing a woman. Okay? Now, this is what I need you to do as well. One, if you have an agent, I need you to talk to them about doing the same thing that I'm doing as a casting director. If they get a certain spec and you see that it's just for 30s, 40s males, ask your agent, say, throw in a couple of women. I bet they'll love that. Right? Throw me into the mix. Just, they're going to listen and they're going to go, hey, what is this? Wow, we've never thought of a woman. That could work really well. I mean, the thing is that they're just so Neanderthal in their thinking. They haven't been told to think anything else. And so what we need to do is open their eyes to the possibility of how amazing this can be. Okay? If you work for a client or a producer that is using you in a traditionally male-targeted VO role, after you work for them, applaud them. Let them know about the important work that they're doing. Ask them if you can feature them in a podcast about enlightened producers and enlightened director. I mean, they eat that stuff up. They love it. Oh, I'm on the cutting edge, huh? Do you see how every day this depends on a certain mindset about how you're going to approach your self-worth. And I know women because I deal with women all the time in this situation where they come at it from this very nurturing, supportive kind of way in which they're going to somehow denigrate their own worth and put themselves into a hierarchical structure where the director or the producer is somehow up here and they're here. Now, that's not only women. It is men too. Believe me, men need to get this into their heads too. But it is a mindset about somehow not treating yourself with the equality and the understanding that you are an essential part of their project and you're meeting them as a professional business one-on-one. This is what I'm talking about, okay? And I want to hear later in Q&A about your own experiences, what you would do in this situation. But right now, we're going to move on and we're going to hear from Marion first. Now, Marion is not feeling wonderfully well, so if she needs to book out after we're done with this, please excuse her. But Marion's going to tell us about some situations and we can talk about back and forth how we can work with that particular situation to get the most ideal outcome. Okay, Mary?
Yes, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So I was telling Dave that I actually had an audition for a YouTube project, and it was only a minute long. And of course, on the I keep looking up at my other screen. On the guide, it actually has for 3 to 5 minutes, and that rate is $750 to $1,000. And of course, it breaks down that's the approximate time, the number of words, and even talking about the number of views. So what I was explaining to him is I was hesitant. I just didn't know how do I rate only a minute. I want to make sure that I'm definitely getting paid, at least average. And I didn't want to cheat myself by saying 500. But I was like, okay, dude. It was just very difficult to try to figure out. So I actually said 650 is what I actually said. But again, when I was doing the math, I was like 650 is probably like 2 to 3 minutes. So it's possible that 500 would have been fine. Now the other issue with that is the other half of the guide, where in the notes it actually talks about the how many views they have, and a lot of times on especially for V123, they do not have or provide that kind of information to us. So a lot of times we just don't know for this situation, as well as a number of other situations, we just don't have enough information sometimes on the project, and they're not even even when I actually put a question in my notes in my proposal, they don't address it. So you still have to present some type of proposal. And again, I always put a little note. My mentor trained me to put a little note just saying that this is a placement. I forgot the verbiage, but like it's a placement, until I get more information about the usage and,
Right.
all those
Placeholder.
different things.
Right.
Yes, thank you. But again, it's I feel confident with all of those different things, except for just not sure if I'm selling myself short when it comes to that. And again, for this one, I did do 650, but again, in the back of my mind, I was like, what if I'm still cheating myself? What if they have over 1 million views, or 1 million followers? I'm cheating myself at that point, So
Yes, exactly. Let's take a look. 1 second.
okay,
All right. So let's take a look at what she was talking about, just so you guys can all be on the same page here.
okay,
Uh, okay. So if we go down to non-broadcast, and then we go down to YouTube content, which is right here, you'll notice that what she was looking at says 3 to 5 minute episodes, and they were talking about what were they talking about? 1.5 to 3.
yeah. They said that it was like 1 to 2. I believe they actually said 1 to 3. But
Okay.
I think in parentheses
Okay.
they said that it may be about a minute long.
Right. Okay. But it was specifically for YouTube content
Correct.
and nothing else. Right.
Yes, that
So,
is correct.
so we are in the right area, and you'll notice that the rate here for 3 to 5 minutes is 750 to 1,000. First of all, let's talk briefly about this range idea. When we create the rate guide, we're talking to real people in the field. What are they charging? What are they making off of this? And so there is a range. People don't always make exactly the same amount, nor are we allowed to set an amount, a specific amount for a job. We can't do that. But what we can do is we can let you know what the range is that people are getting for this kind of work. Okay? Having said that, what I would always do is I would always start with the very highest end of the range. Always. I don't care if you're just starting out and you're just opening up your business and you need the experience, or you don't feel like a professional yet, or you're going through your imposter syndrome phase. I'm sorry, you've got to start at the top, because otherwise, as someone who is going to be negotiating their rate, you have nowhere to go.
Wow.
You do not have anywhere to go as a negotiator.
Yeah.
Only down further below the rate that you should get, the minimum that you should getting paid. So this is something that it's important to understand when you're using the rate guide. Know that this is probably, if in a 3 to 5 minute episode, I would go nowhere underneath that, just because that's the minimum that people are getting paid. So why should I get paid less than the minimum? Yeah. No, thank you. You are denigrating your own worth. Okay? So you always start with the maximum, and that way you leave room for yourself to negotiate. Now, understanding that this wasn't 3, I would probably have said, okay, well, if it's 2 minutes to 3 minutes or whatever, then I can know that rate is probably 5 to 750. So what Marion did was she came right in the middle, which I think is totally fine. I actually think that that's a decent rate for what she was asking for. I don't know, and what's really important here is that a higher rate applies to channels with over 500,000 average views. Now, if they have no experience and this is their first time, then they will not know what that is. They will not know what that. Obviously, everybody's going to shoot for a certain amount. However, and what's really important, and what you need to do, Marion, is in a situation like that, is you need to give the rate, and then say rate is negotiable based on an average number of views over the time usage for this particular project. Okay? So that way you're going to be able to say, if I'm getting 500,000, if you got 500,000 views, right, off of this, the rate is going to go up to, I don't know, $800. And you build that into your contract, right? You say this job is contingent upon the number of hits or number of views experienced over the time usage of this project. I know that's kind of ballsy, right? It's like, ooh, oh my God, what is that? That's not like a final thing. But you need to tell them, hey, if the project that I'm a part of is doing extremely well, I'm a part of that extremely well. And if you're getting the kind of hit off of this project that you're expecting, I want a little part in that. It's kind of like saying I want a little bit of royalty on the back end, right? I always do that these days. Okay.
I have a
Yes.
question. So I I actually got a tad bit of an anxiety attack when you said start at the high. Like I have never done that. Never. Like I would have never but it definitely makes sense to actually start because like you said, if I'm at the low end, I have nowhere to go other than
Yeah.
below the minimum. So I appreciate
Right.
that. But my question is, how do we once we've actually agreed and the project is complete, uh, because what you're talking about as far as the views, that's after the project's already complete. How would a lot of times we don't even get copies of the project, that we're a part of. So how do we actually
You
ensure that we're actually getting
right.
what we're
So what
supposed to
you
be
do
getting
is
with
you
the
say in the contract, that if the average number of views on this is under X amount, the rate, the buyout rate is firm. If the number of views are way above the average amount, then you acknowledge that an extra amount of so and so, such and such a number will be paid upon uh, the
wow.
completion of. Well, come on. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, look, I've been negotiating for so many years, but I do it with pride and joy. I
Yeah.
do it because I know I'm worth it. I do it because I'm educating people. I do it because I'm doing it in such a wonderfully educating, lighthearted manner that people go, "Oh, yeah, okay, I can see
Right.
that. That's fine."
Right.
You know, um, many, many, many years ago when I was a young buck out of college and I was in an indie movie, right? And I said, okay, um, I'll do this movie, but if it gets distributed one day, I'm getting X percentage royalty of any money you get through that distribution on the back end.
Okay.
10 years later, I found distribution. I was,
Wow.
and I just happened to have seen that. I called the guy back up. I said, "You see that contract?" "Yes, okay, let's see what." Right.
Wow.
So this is taking care of yourself, Marion.
Yeah.
Taking care of yourself in the most honest, beautiful, comfortable way possible. Maybe it won't be comfortable at first because, as you said, you got a little anxiety attack.
Just with
But
this talk, yeah, just you saying it, I was like, what?
right. But this is the way business understands business.
Hmm.
They understand that when you're talking like that, you're a pro.
Yeah.
They're going
Yeah.
to
This is so
expect you to
helpful.
be professional attitude, professional delivery of product, and that's what they're going to pay you for because you
Yeah.
are a professional. Okay?
That's
Cool.
awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You, you betcha. Barry, tell me about your situation.
Okay. Hi, everybody. All right. So my situation was, this happened maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was contacted by a production company who I've done some work with before, and it was going to be for the same client, a national bank in America. What I'd done for them before was some corporate narration videos, 1 to 3 minutes, over Zoom, 500 each, like not on YouTube, just on the client's website. So they said, this project is going to be different, so we need a quote from you. We're talking to 4 women and 4 men, and the client's ultimately going to pick 1 man and 1 woman. They want to record 10 spots that they are going to use for an entire year at various events, live events. And the reason why they want 10 versions is because the style is gonna change based on whether it's like at a sporting event or a kids event or a museum or, a state fair, or I don't know, whatever. So they wanted to have all these different variations that they could then cut, edit, use however they want for 1 year. And they said unlimited event usage, non-exclusive. And my client was like, I'm thinking a range between $5,000 and $10,000 for the whole thing. So that was my first thought was like, wow, that's a huge range. I don't even know where to land in that.
It is kind of a large range.
Yeah, pretty huge range. Wish that I knew the other people that he was talking to. I tried to dig and figure out who else he was talking to so that we could at least talk and be like, hey, shouldn't we all coordinate?
Right.
And so I asked him, I said, that's a big range. If they really want me, am I at risk of losing the job if I quote too high? And he said, even though this is a national bank, like possibly, they're pretty budget focused. So he wanted me to get back with a number. And that's where we land. Now, David, do you want me to go on with the story about what I said?
Well, first of all, I do, but I'm just going to give you the little tip that I gave Marion. No, you don't. You are always going to start on the high end of things to be able to negotiate down.
Panic attack.
Right. I don't know what that. I mean, I would say that it is so incredibly deeply ingrained, hardwired into the culture that somehow it's hubris. Somehow it's it's living beyond your station to ask for that kind of money.
Not just that, but I have a nice rapport with this production company, and I flat out asked them.
Even better.
I know, right? I know, but I flat out okay. But I was like, no, if I quote the hot 10 grand, and everybody else is coming in at 5, like, am I gonna lose this? And he said, yeah, maybe.
Right.
So what do you do?
Right. So if he gave you that little hint, then you don't come in at 10, but you come in at 8. Okay. 10, it's that he's very subtly saying 10 might knock you out of a job, but anyway, so tell me what happened.
All right, so here's what happened. So I looked at the GVAA rate guide and I thought to myself, okay, if I was just doing one of these, I would quote between 600 and 1,000, but probably closer to 1,000. Because, accounting for that unlimited usage and how they can cut it up any way they want.
Yeah.
So then I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to think 600 each because it's a bulk situation. And they said we can knock it out in one session. So I quoted $6,000. And I will let everyone know that a few days later, my client got back to me and said, based on everybody else's quotes, we're coming in at 7,500 for this. If they pick you, you'll get 7,500. Is that okay with you, Barry? Ha ha.
Is that okay with you, Barry? Now,
I'm
now
still
let's
waiting
take a
to
look.
hear if I booked it or not,
Okay.
everybody. That's the, yeah.
Okay. But let's take a look at that for a second. So obviously, the larger number of people were submitting at a higher rate, so to average out probably at 7,500. So my 8,000 was closer than your 6,000 was to what it ended up being.
Yeah.
And again, this is about getting paid what you're worth. Now, technically, if you go on to the GVA website, um, that's a really good rate, period. Okay, for what they're asking for. It really was a good 7,500 is a good rate for that. It's beyond the high end of what I would have calculated. Uh, I understand the whole thing about giving them a volume discount rate. I think that's a great way to negotiate. But but the volume discount is going from 10 to 8.
Yeah.
Especially if you knew you were privy to certain information. And I
Yeah,
just
and I'm
want,
already on
yeah,
the short list, and
right,
this
yeah,
was eye-opening for me, really.
good.
That he came in 1,500 higher than what I quoted and was just going to give it to me. And I said to him, my client, I was like, "Thank you for the transparency. Thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much for not pocketing that extra
Yes.
money." I told him, I was like, "I really appreciate that because you could have pocketed that."
Mm-hmm. No, that's wonderful. And again, what you're doing is you're applauding people in positions where they could have gone in a different direction and building up their self-esteem, their understanding of what this is all about, and the professionalism on both ends of this transaction. So I applaud you and this other person for being transparent. And I would just want to for you everybody to understand that there is nothing wrong with getting paid a lot of money for what you're worth. Okay? There is nothing wrong with that. And and you need to get used to that. You need to get comfortable with that because if not, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
Because there are going to be empowered women and men who know how to negotiate for what they're worth and more than what they're worth. And that's kind of what GVA is about. If you ever need any help with rate negotiations, that's what we're here for. And our members get free rate negotiation advice. So that non-members we charge, but still, um, I mean, I know we're saving people money just by them coming to us. So I want, just get it in your soul that you are worth every single penny, and there's no reason to lower your own rate. I would say that, women are getting paid 83 cents on the dollar now. It used to be 77. So you have made some progress there. But I would also say that until you are completely uncomfortable with 83 cents on the dollar, you will continue to get 83 cents on the dollar. And you need to say that is insufficient funds. Sorry. And just like that woman who all of a sudden went from like, what do I tell them? They're offering 250 and it's the 750. For her to go out and said, that's great, it's now 800, and they actually paid her for it. I love that. I love that. Such chutzpah, right? Such moxie at that moment to be able to say, you put me through enough crap here, and I'm doing it for you, but it's going to cost you. I love that. So, really quickly, Barry, another awful story that happened while you were living in Seoul.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's right. So for those who don't know me, I lived in South Korea for 14 years, was voice acting there, and that the number that you said, 83 cents on the dollar, that's an American statistic. That
Right.
that does not go for the rest of the
The rest
world.
of the world, no.
And I'm sure the rest of the world, the numbers are were really bad. So one of my experiences, and this was sort of par for the course working in Korea. I had a client that ongoing relationship with. I would go to their studio and they would pay me like cash. They would hand me an envelope of cash every time I left. And he, this one time, handed it over to me, but he held on to this envelope of cash. And I went to take it and he held on to it. And he said, "Oh, Barry, just curious, like, you are married, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm married." And he was like, "Why do you need to make so much money if your husband works also?" He was like, "Your husband works and you're the wife." And I was like, "Do you think this is just my money for like handbags and manicures? Like, what is?" And I was like, "I actually make more money than my husband." Like, I'm so
Yeah, right. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
yeah,
I'm the
exactly.
breadwinner.
I
Right,
literally, yeah.
right.
But I just like, but you have to, consider cultural differences and also a very different male-female dynamic in a lot of Asian countries, well, all Asian countries. So, you can't get stern or belligerent, but you can still hold your ground. And I just was like, "Oh, Mr. Kim, like, aren't I worth it?" And he was like, "Oh, ha ha ha, yes, you are." And I like took my money and was like, "Okay, 안녕하세요."
Out of
Yeah,
here.
I'm out of here.
Right, exactly.
But like, but it's
Amazing.
important to
Yeah.
note that like America, I think I shouldn't just say America, but Western countries, we set the standard and we're paving the way. And a lot of these other countries with their rates and their standards are following our lead. So it makes it even more important that we fight for these rates. Um, yeah.
And don't be afraid to say no. Okay? Don't be afraid to say no. Because if you say yes to everything and it's not what you deserve and it's not what you are worth, what's going to happen? Continue to go down and down and down and down. And it'll be completely antithetical to your goal of being a full-time working voice actor. Won't happen, right? You're going to have to hustle and hustle and hustle for more and more and more and work at less and less rates, lower and lower rates. Not a good business model. Okay. Thank you so much, Marion. Thank you so much, Barry.
My pleasure.
Really great stuff. Yeah, really wonderful. And I'd like to hand it over to Christy now, who's, and then after her presentation, we can take questions from y'all. Okay.
Thanks so much, David. Thank you, Barry and Marion, door builders, ambassadors coming on, helping out. Thank you. I want to ask you a question, David. I know there's already been some questions in the chat. Did you want to address those now or save those for later?
Let's save them for later.
All right, we're going to put a pin in that. So thank you all for coming tonight. I'm so excited that we have so many people on live, and I know that the people will watch after. If you're not familiar, I'm the creator of the Building Doors campaign. It started about almost 2 years ago now. Shut up. Yeah. It's been I've been in voice acting for about 20 years, and I'm a former college athlete. I'm also a former head varsity coach, and my kids play a lot of sports. And so I wanted to marry my passion for sports with voiceover. And for 5 years, I paid a lot of money. I spent a lot of time, did all the things that everyone told me to do to try and get into male dominated sports promo like NFL, MLB. And I wasn't getting anywhere. And finally, out of frustration, I asked this agent at Atlas, I'm like, "What gives?" And she's like, "You're a woman." And she's like, "Yeah, go make your own noise." And so the next day I figured if there's no door for me to knock on, I'll partner with women around the world and build one. And the last almost 2 years, I've had countless, actually, conversations with women in sports, men in sports, women in tech and law and automobile, agriculture, event planning, HR. And there are so many common denominators that are not unique to voiceover, which is men make the majority of the decisions. And if you do not have a well-intended man who has a daughter, has a partner, an aunt, a cousin, a sister, that is easily intimidated or threatened by women in positions of power, it's going to be a hard row, you know? And one of the things that I wanted to share was how I was able to get face to face with the marketing department of a Super Bowl winning team. To date, I've been able to get face to face with the Cleveland Guardians, the Cleveland Cavs, NASCAR, Sportsnet, which is the number one sports broadcasting media station out of Canada. There's so many more. The Kansas City Royals. And that's just to name a few, right? Oh, and World Cup. So how did I get there? Because isn't that what you want to do as a voice actor? You want to get face to face with these clients and pitch yourself? I'll tell you this, I didn't pitch myself. There's first step number one. I didn't pitch myself ever. I've never promoted my voiceover services in any of these meetings. And 95% of the people who I get off calls with, the first thing they say after I get done pitching building doors is thank you for not asking for a job. I firmly believe after the almost 2 years of running the campaign and evangelizing the campaign that we need to find a purpose bigger than booking the gig. Because right now with the infiltration, I said infiltrate, big word, of AI, we don't even know when we're scrolling through our FYP what's real and what isn't. We have to question everything. People want to talk to other people. They want to have a shared cause, a shared likeness, a shared morality, a shared something. And when you lead with purpose and you lead with service, that is what's going to get you to the next person and the next person and finally to your destination. So I'm going to share my screen because I've created a presentation that's going to help me because that's what I do. I'm a visual learner. I don't know about you guys, but I like visuals. I'm going to go into present mode. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Yeah, we're good. Okay. So let's talk about the play-by-play of how I got to the Super Bowl winning team. They have won recent Super Bowls. I'm not going to tell you who, but you can figure out, who it is probably pretty easily. This is a true story. I have replaced some of the headshots and names, but this is really how it went down. I took screenshots of all my messages, and this is what happened. So a first connection of mine on LinkedIn wrote this post. Let's try something together right here, right now. Share below a specific person you're looking to connect with, blase woo woo. Here we go. First comment was from Mr. Frank Foutier, let's just call him. And he said, since you asked, and then he tagged me. And he said, I would love to connect and gain any insights you're willing to share about venturing into part-time voiceover work. I'd also be happy to reach out to multiple NFL contacts, as well as other community relations directors I know in professional sports to help make that connection you're looking for. Can we just sit here for a minute and revel in what Frank Foutier did? It says first connection because I literally last week went and took a screenshot of this because we connected after this, and you'll see that in the next slide. But at the time we weren't connected. So why did Frank even know me? Frank knew me. He knew Building Doors. He knows I'm a voice actor because I show up consistently and authentically on brand message on social media. If you're not using social media to your advantage, if you're not showing up consistently, and on LinkedIn, if you're posting more than once or twice a week, you're doing better than the billions of people that have profiles. Once or twice a week, that's it. Frank didn't know me. We were not connected. Yet he took this opportunity when this mutual connection posted this to call me out. Now let's go a little bit deeper to what Frankie Frank did. He asked for what he wanted, and then he told me what he was going to give me in return. And he knows I want that because he's followed me long enough to know that that's what I want. So I write, hey, Frankie, thanks so much. I just sent you a request to connect, excuse me. We can move from here. So where did it move? I'm going to show you. Look at all the massages I just gave you. You're more than welcome to screenshot, do what you will. So after we connect, he immediately responds and says, hey, great to connect. I want to learn more about you and your path and how I can be a resource to Building Doors. Okay, Frank. I see you, Frank. And then I say, great. How can I best serve you? What lanes in VO are you interested in? You can see that he comments, he's interested. Now, if you looked at his title, he's an editor and director, content producer. He's a writer. He's an on-air personality. He's wanted to dabble in VO for a while. He just hasn't had the right direction or had the connect to do so. So I then give this lengthy message on LinkedIn, and I tell him quite a bit. I give him quite a bit of valuable information, and I steer him and give him some pretty valuable resources, and I offer my time even further. And so I'm not asking for anything from him yet. I'm giving first. I'm giving as much as I possibly can. I need to move everyone's pictures here. So then you'll see that Frank responds, yeah, I like this information. This is great. This would be part-time for me, blase woo-woo. And I have a radio background, la-di-da-di. And I'd be willing to have a brief conversation. Wonderful. So we set up a Zoom. Great, we set up a Zoom. So what happens next? This is what happens when I get on any call, whether they reach out to me first or I reach out to them. I listen. It's the first thing I do is I listen. I share, we dream, and we open doors together. So I let them lead. There are people that I've gotten on the phone with, people you would know, that talk for 20 minutes about themselves. Great, I'll listen. They need that time to do that. And it's also an opportunity for me to listen and try and identify challenges and pain points that maybe I can help address and we can strategize together on. Oftentimes people will say, let's get straight to it. Christy, tell me about building doors. And I go into my pitch. I share the story of building doors. I'm really honest about my frustration. I'm really honest about the data that I've collected that supports why I'm so frustrated. And I tell them about the brands that I've already talked to. I start naming these names, right? That I named to you guys just a few minutes ago. And that validates that these people are willing to talk to me. They clearly agree with me. They've given me public statements of support. And typically at that point, I would say 97.8% of the time, people immediately say, yeah, you need to talk to so-and-so in my network. Let me do an email introduction to this person. Let me do this. Let me do that. I also make sure at that point to share what I want. So I've shared my story. I've either listened to them, but now I talk about what I want. And the next year I want this, this, and this to happen for building doors. These are the things I want to see happen. Who do you think can get me there? And if they're not one of that 97% that immediately offer to have me speak with people, I come right out and I ask. I say, so with everything I've told you about building doors, where do you think I'm lacking? What do you think I'm missing because you sit in a unique position that I don't? And is there anybody in your network that you think you could connect me with that might be able to help advance this mission? And if you don't have the time, I understand you're busy. You could just give me their names and may I use your name when I email them? So I try to be as strategic as possible about getting them on the hook, sharing what I am passionate about, what I'm looking to get from them, and we move from there. So this is what can happen when you open a door and someone else holds it open for you. On the call, Frank offered to introduce me to a handful, like literally 5 or 6 contacts, including his BFF at the Super Bowl winning team in the marketing department. The very next day, I didn't have to go begging. He made all those intros via email. Why? Because he wanted something from me. I gave him what he asked for, and he's giving me something in exchange. FYI, this costs nothing. It costs me nothing, and it costs him nothing. He saw the value in networking. So if you paid attention, the first time that Frank made that ask of me and tagged me on that post was June 19th. So by mid-July, I was on a face-to-face Zoom with a decision maker at the Super Bowl winning team in the marketing department. That's 24 days from the day that Frank commented on that post. That's 24 days. That's not long. Not all calls are like that, right? I've had calls that have taken, like, World Cup took me forever to get to. So I know what you're thinking now that I've gone through this scenario. And the reason I picked this scenario is because you are Frank. I am the client. In his mind, I'm the client because he wanted to reach out to me. These examples from Frank give you literally a blueprint on how you could reach out to a potential client. So I know what you're thinking. Well, how can I apply this to what I'm doing? How do I show up with purpose? How can I do this? So I was thinking about it last week when I was putting these slides together. And if you can identify a cause, a mission, or something that you're passionate about, maybe you're a breast cancer survivor and you know that you can bring something to an e-learning oncology course that nobody else can. Maybe you're a former teacher. Maybe you're a former accountant. Maybe you're just really into surfboards. Maybe you craft some in your garage and you're super passionate about it. Find something that you can authentically show up consistently and show yourself as that. Create a why that's bigger than booking the gig. Share personal stories that resonate and create your own micro campaign. Mark Scott is a perfect example of this. The Building Doors campaign is also a perfect example of this. But Mark Scott wants to narrate nature specials. How do I know that? Because he shows up consistently narrating 30 seconds or a minute of nature documentaries. He has a top of his head. He has some sort of nature or whatever, and he's narrating it. And then he tags the brand. He's showing up consistently. And I was thinking, well, let's say you don't feel as though you're super passionate about anything. It's racking your brain. To give you some inspiration, I've included the logos of organizations that came off the top of my head. Voice Over for the Planet, Disabled Voice Actors, Queer Vox, Blue Wave Voiceover, the Georgia Radio Project, which is now VP. They just changed their logo and their name. So I highly recommend that if you want to reach a brand, name a brand. Let's say it's a regional ice cream shop. You love ice cream. You make your own homemade ice cream. You play with flavors of ice cream. You have the Ninja Creamy. You do all of that. Well, now you start telling those stories and you start sharing images and video of you making that ice cream, of your family taste testing it and giving food reviews. Be creative. And it's not hard to do that stuff when you're passionate about it. I love building doors. It's so easy for me to show up. 95% of my day is spent on building doors because I love it. And I'm seeing real movement. I'm talking to major companies about advancing women and having women heard in rooms they've never been heard before. You can do that too if you show up with purpose, authenticity, and consistency.
Where'd you go?
I'm right here. I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. Good. Fantastic.
I was giving finality. I was giving end scene.
Ah, okay. Wonderful. I was wondering what that was. Okay. So, so, yeah, this is so important. And one of the things that Christy has a passion that is palpable. You need to have the same passion for your own voiceover business.
Yes.
Okay? And if you do, I'll feel it. And if you feel it, I will catch that wave with you. And surfing metaphor here, Christy. And I will ride that wave in with you as long as you guide me. If you have that kind of passion and that kind of excitement, I'm there for you. Okay? Because that kind of excitement, that kind of passion is infectious. It is attractive.
You know, I want to share another story, not to interrupt you, but I am interrupting you. So a friend of mine reached out to me, a local friend, and said, Christy, do you want to get a table with me at Tennis in the Land? So Tennis in the Land is a women's professional qualifying event for the U.S. Open. And it's here in Cleveland. And I was like, yeah, I want to go to Tennis in the Land. Yeah, I'll pay to go to Tennis in the Land. She goes, oh, well, I want to introduce you to my contact at Tennis in the Land so you can pitch building doors just so they know about you. I was like, great. So it turns out the person I was pitching to was the intern. God bless her soul, sweet young lady. And I didn't think much of it. So she liggity loved everything about building doors. So she went to her superior, who is the marketing director for Tennis in the Land. And I don't know that she necessarily did that great of a job, but I ended up getting on this call with this woman, and she starts off by saying, I know, I gave the pitch. I told them all about building doors, everything. She goes, when the intern came to me and said I was going to talk to a voiceover actor and I just had to speak to her and I just had to know what this voice actor had to say, I was pretty dubious. But now I get it. And now I'm going to be a speaker at their event and I'm going to interview professional tennis players. And they are sharing content and we're going to create joint content together. And on its face, building doors doesn't sound like much. It's what the person who's pitching brings to it. You have no idea who's watching you. None. You have no idea. I wasn't even connected with Frank Foutier. And he called me out. You don't know. Show up authentically, consistently, with purpose, whatever purpose that is. And people are going to come to you. It's like a magnet. And you'll experience things that you never experienced before. It's really so much easier to get to your dream client than you think. And I've proven it. You can do it.
But you got to get rid of your imposter syndrome. Okay? You got to get rid of your I'm not worth this amount of money syndrome. Then it'll all happen. Okay? Because I know you're passionate, but you got to be passionate and actually put that face forward with in terms of your own self-worth and in terms of getting paid and in terms of doing that. When it comes to that, you don't start with that. You don't lead with that. That is the fire that's burning inside you and the passion for your own worth as a voiceover business that you want to share with other people, so that when it comes time to talk money, they're already sold. Or if they need to be educated a little, which is what Tina asked before in the questions down in there, and I want to address that really briefly. Tina had asked, how do you educate when a client has no clue on rates and comes from a place of ease? Really important that you you have the rate guide on to use. You actually say, well, there's actually a national non-union rate guide with rates for the kind of work that we do, right? And I am a professional. I have been a professional for a number of years. You are a professional as soon as you open up your doors for business, okay? You've invested in training. You've invested in coaching. You've invested in a home studio. You've invested in a website. You are a professional, right? I mean, when someone someone passes the bar and they go and they get with the firm, they don't say, well, I'm just starting out, so I think I should probably do some work for free, and then maybe I'll charge like 10% of what the other people in the firm are making. And then one day when I've won all these cases, then I'll get to pay. This is the mentality that we're talking about, right? It's this constant undermining of your own worth. So the passion that Christy knows what she's worth. I can hear it. I can feel it. I can see it. It's a great feeling. It's attractive, right? And that's what y'all need to do. Every single one of you. So you have the rate guide, Tina, but then you also say, as a professional, these are the going rates, and therefore this is a great place to start. And we can talk about your specific needs in terms of time usage and placement usage. And then I can come back to you with a very specific quote based on your needs for this project. And then we can go from there. All right. And so you also talk to them about your value. I can get you 24 to 48 hour turnaround. I can get you in any form you want. I'm good for 3 small revisions for this rate. all this kind of stuff that you can build in. They're going, wow, she knows what the heck she's talking about. Dang, and so they're going to respect that. And if they don't, then you don't want to be working with those people who say, nah, that's too much. You're not worth that much. So you very kindly, you can smile and you go like, hey, basta, no. So, all right, no, you don't do it. But you say, well, I hope you find something that works for you. If not, I'm available. Right? And that's the way you build a rep out there. Do you know that there was some guy who unfortunately did not believe that. This is a male voice actor, because I said it's an epidemic out there of not feeling your own worth. It's not just women. But a guy came in and he had been doing all this stuff for free because he wanted to get because he heard that agents wouldn't take you if you didn't have a great resume. So he was just working for free for all these different projects. And I was going, and so little did I know. So I was talking to another casting director, and I said, well, I listened to this guy. He's pretty good, and he might just be right for what you're looking for. Little did I know, this guy had heard of that guy and said, oh, isn't that the guy that does all that stuff for free? Can you believe it? Somehow, it wasn't through me. Somehow that rep had gotten out there. When Christy said people are looking at you all the time, they are. Oh yeah, they are.
Yep.
And so that he said, I don't want to do somebody that does it free. I want a real bona fide voice actor. So there you go, right? So understanding your worth from the very beginning. You try going to your house is, a pipe has broken in a water main or something. You need to get some help here, and a plumber comes out and goes, well, that's going to cost you $1,000, and the water is slowly rising, and you're going like, well, would you take $350? No, right? So if you have a professional job that needs to be done now, you're going to pay the going rate for that. I'm not asking for thousands more, but I certainly aren't going to undercut my professionalism at the same time when you're going to get the best out of me, right? So I think that's also really important, Tina, okay?
I just want to thank everybody for, I know this is a donation-based webinar, and after 20 years plus of voice acting, I've attended many a webinar. And anytime I do a webinar, anytime I do an interview, I really want to make sure that I am providing things of value, because you're spending your time with me, and time is the most precious gift you can give someone, because you can never get it back. So I really want to make sure that you walk away tonight after your donation and your time, that you feel like you can walk away with tangible things, tangible steps that you can take to reach out to your client, to negotiate with confidence. So please, if you have any questions, please, bring them on, put them in the chat.
Wave your hand. Wave your hand around.
Because David and I actually have been talking about this workshop for 6 months. And one of the things that we have. And one of the things that I told him, I'm like, we have to show up with value, because people need to walk away feeling like they couldn't just get this via Google. So I want to make sure that everyone here feels that way, and I don't want you to walk away feeling otherwise. So please ask any questions, or if you want more stories,
Yeah, there's always stories.
Or you want to share a story? Yeah, let us know.
But we also want to give you, real life actionable things that you can do in these situations to create a sense of pride and equality in your own work, meeting somebody at their place, right, of understanding and working with them to create something extraordinary, hopefully. That's the way, you meet somebody as an equal, guess what? They will suddenly go, oh, she's an equal. He's an equal. Because you
There's a
presented
question.
yourself. Yes.
There's a question from
Tom.
Melanie in the chat, and then
Oh,
Tom has his hand raised.
okay. Melanie said, just hold on a second, Tom. Is the negotiation content in this webinar different from the already completed webinar on negotiations? So I did a long, it's in the GVA membership. There is a webinar just devoted to negotiations. I would say that the negotiation content in this webinar sometimes was specific to women here in a way that the other negotiation webinar was not. I think a number of the tactics and a number of the mindset is going to be the same, but women need to approach this because of the cultural status that women have been given in a different way and with a slightly different understanding. So I would say that they go really well together, the negotiation webinar that's available in GVA, but no, I think this is very special and very specific, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of it. Hopefully that answered that question. Tom.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank both of you. This has been amazing, actually, just the knowledge and stuff. And, I've come away with a bunch from both of you throughout this whole thing. My biggest thing right now is like trying to figure out how to, and again, David knows I'm very new to this. This is something that I'm, working on in my next phase of life and everything. And it's basically trying to figure out how to utilize social media with VO and everything, because it's very audible media, and then putting stuff and all the social media is basically like, face front and visual, how to maybe use that or to adjust it. I haven't quite grasped in my head the best way to do that. But, as you said, Christy, finding something that you're passionate about and start posting about that, but again, it's social media is something that I've struggled with for a very, very long time.
Christy.
Brandon Miller. Go look him up. Brandon Miller has amazing content. And if you scroll, doom scroll, and go back to his original post, you'll see his evolution. He started just talking about voiceover tips, right? And then he realized he wasn't getting what he wanted to get, because everybody and their brother puts out voiceover tips, because when you're not earning money as a voice actor, you try to be a coach. So then, okay, I'll speak the truth. So then he started to share things like he has this very funky mustache, and he started putting like all these old school pictures of when he did mustache competitions. And people were like, say what? And they were all in it, right? Liking it, sharing it. Then he started talking about how he was the equivalent of, what is a wine sommelier, but it's for beer. There's a name for
beer.
it. He is that person. He went to school and everything for it. And he like judges beer competitions. Again, who would know? Do those two things have anything to do with voiceover? No. But it immediately made him identifiable as a person. As, oh, this guy's kind of cool. Like, he's got a kind of funky vibe. He does mustache competitions and he brews his own beer. And he's like, he knows everything about beer. He can smell it and tell you what hops and what vintage and la, la, la. So it makes you more personable. Don't necessarily, my recommendation is to you, now that you asked, but my recommendation to you is to say, what do you do on a daily basis or a weekly basis that you just love? Maybe there's a book club. Maybe it's skiing. Maybe it's outdoor stuff. But go to Brandon and just look at all of his stuff, and you will see what I'm talking about. Show who you, Tom Downs, are. Doesn't necessarily have to be you voicing something, because that comes naturally. And what happened to Brandon, because I know, because we're friends, he would talk to me about how people on Instagram and Twitter, I think he used to be on X, would reach out to him to ask for voiceover stuff, not because he was posting about this genre of voice that he wanted to do, just because they liked him as a person and they just liked the voice that they heard with him just talking authentically about stuff he loves.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
By the way, I did not want you to walk away tonight without knowing the term Cicerone. Cicerone is the beer version of
Thank
Sommelier.
you. And he's told me what it was before, but I didn't remember. Yeah, and it's crazy all the stuff he had to do to become that.
Yeah, so you can go to bed happy now. So I do want to let you know that LinkedIn is an incredible source where you can actually not only network and expand your horizons that way, but also get actual voiceover work there too. And that's really important. Now, how you go about doing that without pissing people off is also very important. I'm going to put into the chat a little doc about LinkedIn search terms for voice actors. Now, what this means is that this is a good start for you guys. You can go look at all the different search terms and then apply them to specific genres of the industry. And once you put these search terms in, you're going to get a whole bunch of people. Then you're going to decide, oh, I've heard of that, or I've heard of this company, or I know that guy, or whatever, right? And once you have this awareness, then what you do is you start doing your research, right? Oh, she produced that thing. I gotta go. I love that. I'm gonna go give her props, right? Because who doesn't like to be acknowledged for the work that they're getting done right? So I'll go somewhere. I'll go like, oh my God, I just want you to know that production is so and so that you were part of, and I can see that. It's so cool. Hey, congratulations. I really love that. I'm in the business too. If you ever want to chat for 5 minutes, that would be really exciting. Not like I need a job, right? I can't tell you how many times a woman producer calls me up. We set a date on Zoom for 15 minutes. And for those whole 15 minutes, we ended up talking about puppies because she just gotten puppies. And that was it. And I said, time's up. I got to go. But I said, this has been wonderful. I know everything about your new puppies that there is to know, and maybe we can meet again sometime and talk about something else. But that's all. I didn't push it. We never got around. We were having such a good time talking about puppies, right? So right then and there, it's this human connection. And it's not that you don't want to come across as desperate, as needy, as the only reason I'm involved in this conversation is because of X, right? You have a passion. You share human interest, you meet together as human beings, and then the business friendship can form if it's meant to, right? But anyway, you can use that LinkedIn if you want as a way to start doing research as to who you might want to get in touch with. Also, if you do decide to get in touch with somebody, it is worth either going Premier or using your 3 to 5, whatever it is a month where you can leave a message, and get them with the message, not just I'd like to connect. Because I don't know why you want to connect with me. Oh, I can see you're a voice actor. Great. You want to connect with me? Why? And
Can I share a juicy secret?
Yeah.
So I used to work for the mayor of the city of Cleveland. I was one of her press secretaries. And there's a lot of stuff that I would get asked to do. And often it would be to find somebody, right? Somebody that they'd say, find this guy's name, right? Go this guy's name. You got to go call him. You got to ask him for XYZ. But oftentimes that was a high-powered person and it was not easy to get to. So I would go the back route and talk to the secretary of the person in the office next to them and chat them up. So one of the things I've done, and I've done this with Building Doors to get to professional sports teams, is I'll go to the website or LinkedIn and I'll find who's their creative director or who's in charge of marketing or something like that. Then I call the general line at headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, I say, oh gosh, you know what? I'm on a deadline right now, and I just need to confirm so and so, the director of marketing's email address, because for some reason it keeps bouncing back. What do you have? And they give it
Yeah, baby.
away in a second.
Hmm.
They give it out like free candy.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. I just call the general number and act like I'm an intern working for some bigwig, or, oh, the email just bounced back. I'm in a hurry. We got to go, lady. We got to go. What's the email address that you have? And if they say, well, what do you have? I make up some general, like ksmith@browns.com. No, 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 you got it all wrong, lady. Well, no wonder it keeps bouncing back. Yeah. Get crafty.
See? Yeah, crafty. I love your craftiness there, Christy. Christy, crafty
I have
Christy.
a question.
Yeah, please.
Christy, how do you say that if they ask you, well, how do you know this person? What do you tell them?
My boss is trying to, I really don't know I'm not connected because I'm the intern. My boss is trying to look, lady, I'm just working on a project. That's all I'm doing. If you can't help me, I'll just call someone else because I really have to get this done. He's breathing down my neck.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I say. I am happy to spend a little extra time in purgatory to get to my goal. Okay? Happy. You think a man would think twice about doing that, Melanie? No.
Right. Just tricks of the trade, right? Whatever gets you in the door.
It's fun because it's kind of like acting, right?
Mhm, it is.
You're practicing for future scripts. You're putting on a role. And honestly, it proves that you're a pretty good actor if you can pull that off.
Mhm. Yep. No, that's great. That's really fun. I love that story. That's
I see
wonderful.
you, Billy Joel, laughing.
Yeah. Questions. Come on. We got a little time
I'll
left.
share. May I share another story?
Yeah, please do.
I think that if you're intimidated at reaching out to people you don't know, you can start with your warm network of LinkedIn connections. You can also, I've had huge success in working with alumni from my college. And I can go to my alumni director and get a resource directory. I can look these people up on LinkedIn. I can say, hey, fellow alum, I see that you're the creative director at XYZ Regional Company and you moved from Cleveland to Kansas. How you doing? How's it going? Yeah, we should catch up, talk about the old days, and start from there. One of the people I graduated with, he and I worked at our college radio station together, got married, had a few kids, and one of them has severe autism. And they became very passionate, started their own nonprofit organization to help kids who are autistic, who don't have access to proper playground equipment, all that other stuff. Our son is also autistic, but not that far on the spectrum. I reached out to him to congratulate him on the great work he's doing on behalf of his daughter. He now hires me on a regular basis to do voiceover work for his nonprofit because there's a shared connection there, not only with the fact that we went to college, but that we have children that are linked. There are many opportunities that I think you might be overlooking that are so easy. They're like low-hanging fruit. So if we start to kind of think in a different way, like we don't just have to reach out to production companies. We don't have to just reach out to big time producers and agents, right? I have 5 or 6 agents and I'm very blessed for the opportunities that are sent my way. But the majority of my work comes from these one-on-one connections that I make, and they're not one-off jobs. They're consistent work.
And that's fantastic, Christy. And I would just piggyback on that and say that we all have we have connections with everybody because we're all human beings.
Yeah. And I think she's in this, is Tina here?
Yeah, she is. She's going to meet you in purgatory.
Yeah, Tina, she coaches on this kind of stuff all the time. And I know Tina can speak to the importance of connecting with purpose and connecting on the human level.
So she wants you to speak to it, Tina. So unmute yourself.
Well, I feel like you two have really done an amazing job speaking about this, in that if we come from a place of service and value, and it's not about I think I even put it in the chat, and we're not focused so much about the result, more about what we can, how we can provide value, then things seem to happen. I've just been blown away by Christy, with building doors and how it has, I mean, would you say, Christy, it's really impacted in a positive way your voiceover career, but you didn't do it to impact your voiceover career.
Yeah,
See,
and I don't want people to walk away and think, oh, Christy must get all these jobs. I don't. In the last 2 years, I've probably got 3 or 4, but that's not the point. The point is that when I evangelize this brand, when I meet face to face with all these different people in all these different genres of industries, I have planted a seed. They're going to remember me for voiceover before they remember anyone else because I've shown up authentically. I've had a passionate conversation about advancing women, not myself. And I will say, to your point, Tina, one of the 3 jobs that I have gotten, the guy reached out to me on LinkedIn. Again, was not connected, and he sent me a LinkedIn message, and he goes, "Hey, I've been watching you. I've been watching LinkedIn and the Building Doors campaign, and I really like that you don't promote yourself. So I'm going to hire you because those are the kind of people I want on my team." So that's a prime example of what Tina was just saying. I feel like I'm planting seeds for 2 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the line. Because when that person either goes to another job or somebody says, oh, I need something, I've got this darn commercial and I don't have anybody, my voice sounds terrible. Oh, you know what? I talked to this lady, this crazy lady. You should go talk to her, right? And I will also share that on LinkedIn, I connected with a guy in blue collar work. Ladies, blue collar work. Start promoting yourself in blue collar work because nobody is. And he's a production company that specifically works for blue collar trades. Think construction companies, dump truck companies, trash removal, all of that stuff. And for about 6 months, we were just friendly, whatnot. I would comment on his posts. He would comment on mine. He finally reached out to me, not finally, but he reached out to me and he goes, hey, listen, I do proof of concept for my potential clients. I will do like a quick 30-second video to show them what I can do to try and get their work. But I've been using my voice and it sounds horrible. Would you be willing to just do scratch tracks for me for $100? Yes. Because then what that does is it not only helps him look more professional, it not only helps his product look smoother and richer and like, wow, he's got his stuff together. But now they've been introduced to a female voice where they otherwise wouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And they're more
Amen.
likely to say, yeah, I like that whole package. Yeah, I like it. Let's do a minute. Let's do two. Yeah, I'm hiring you. And they're going to say, I want that same voice. Planting seeds. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You really have to. And when you if you send a connection request on LinkedIn and they connect, don't immediately message them. I know some people will tell you to do that. Don't. Let them get to know you because now the algorithm is going to put you in the top of their feed. And your content they're going to start to see your content just naturally when they're going. So they're all of a sudden they'll be like, oh yeah, I just connected with Tom. Oh, look at Tom and his surf shop on the side. Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh, this. Show up consistently, show up authentically, and then you can reach out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. You know, we are at an hour and a half. I think we need to kind of wrap up at this point. Obviously, I think all of you should be ambassadors and following Christy's lead and sharing that in building more doors like she's doing. Hopefully we put a little fire under your butt tonight and you feel like you can follow all the stuff that we've talked about. Every month I do a Cup of Joe, which is a free webinar for voice actors. And you can just get on the mailing list and watch it. But this last one, Tina, was called From Desperation to Service. So pretty cool, right? It's free, by the way. All you have to do is go to the GVAA on demand and create a free membership there, free, and then you can watch that. But it was so pertinent to everything that Tina was saying and to what Christy was saying. So let me see. How do we approach negotiating when our LinkedIn connections want to hire you for VO, but it's offering way lower rates than what you know? Well, remember what we talked about earlier, Melanie, about like, I just want to be sure that you're an actual professional company. because you're offering an amateur rate, right? I just want to be clear because I am a professional, and if you're a professional company, you should be offering a professional rate for your professional company for my work. Yeah? I mean, put them
Yeah,
in
I
the
think
hot
that makes
seat.
sense.
Put them in the hot seat. What are they supposed to? No, of course we're a So you're a professional company that just feels like what? Like all you can do is pay amateur rates as a professional company? What does that say about your professional company? I'm sorry, but I can't. I'd love to work with you if you want to work with a professional,
Yeah, I
right?
think that makes a lot of sense. And Christy, have you dealt with that before? And if so, like, how did you approach that conversation?
You are talking with muted, my dear.
Thank you. My dog was barking. Thank you. So here's what I always do. I find that most of the people that reach out to me on LinkedIn have no clue what voice acting should get paid. That's just how it works. They know they have this much money, but they don't know if that's the right amount or not. And so that's this construction guy said the same thing to me when he said, "How about $100?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fair for a scratch." He's like, "You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to make it. If you mess up, I'll edit it. Just send it to me dirty." Sorry, that's Anyway, construction, you get it. Okay. So uh he did hire me for a spot, right? And he's like, "Just tell me, like, what is it?" And I said, "Okay, here's the real deal. For the project you're asking me to do, I typically get paid between this and this for this usage and this time frame. But I don't want you to think that I'm just giving you numbers pie out of the sky. Here's a link to the GVAA rate guide, and it shows you the section in which you're asking me for. You should know moving forward that this is typically kind of like what we get paid. Like, this is a decent range, give or take, whatever. But with that being said, you and I have a relationship. So it's more important to me to develop a working relationship with you than to just upcharge you for a one-off job. So tell me take a look at the GVA rate guide. Take a look at what I'm proposing to you. And let's figure out something that's comfortable, because you and I both know we're going to continue working together. So I would much rather us get a little bit lower and you hire me 6 more times throughout the year than you give me another $150 now and I never hear from you again. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you both.
Cool. Thank you. All right. We do have to go now because I want dinner. But anyway, the royal we has to go now. But anyway, what a pleasure it has been. This has been a fantastic webinar. I knew it was going to be, and hopefully you have some real actionable information to take away with you tonight. And, reach out to Christy, reach out to myself if you're in a particular situation. I'm sure we can help you with that. That's what we're here for. Just paying it forward, passing it on, right?
Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
David.
All right.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Christy. All right. And thank you, ambassadors. We will talk again. Bye.